What if I told you that the Irish and Scottish aren't just neighbors across the sea, they're genetic cousins, too? Their DNA carries the echoes of ancient migrations, shared Celtic roots, and unique twists that shaped two nations side by side. For centuries, people have wondered, how closely related are the Irish and Scottish? Are they almost the same, or do their genes tell a different story? Modern genetic research gives us fascinating answers. By studying DNA markers passed down through generations, scientists can trace the journeys of tribes, invaders, and settlers who left their imprint on both lands. In this video, we'll explore the genetic similarities that bind Ireland and Scotland together, from their shared Celtic heritage to the deep family ties across the Irish Sea. We'll also uncover the differences, the Viking influence in Scotland, the unique Gaelic migrations, and the subtle genetic signatures that make each group distinct. So, let's dive into the story written in their DNA, a tale of kinship, identity, and history woven into every strand. Shared genetic foundations. To understand the genetic story of the Irish and Scottish, we need to go back thousands of years, long before clans, kingdoms, or even the idea of nations. The DNA of both peoples is built on the same deep foundations, shaped by waves of migration that left lasting imprints across the islands. The earliest layer comes from Mesolithic hunter-gatherers who settled in Ireland and Scotland after the last ice age. These small communities lived off the land, fishing, hunting, and foraging, and their genetic legacy still runs through both populations today. Around 6,000 years ago, a new wave arrived, Neolithic farmers from Anatolia. They brought agriculture, domesticated animals, and new technologies, and with them, new genes. This migration blended with the hunter-gatherer base, creating a richer genetic mix that spread across both Ireland and Scotland. But the most dramatic transformation came during the Bronze Age, about 4,000 years ago. This was the era of the Bell Beaker culture, a group of people who carried distinctive pottery styles, advanced metalworking, and, most importantly, a powerful genetic influence. Studies show that the Bell Beaker migration reshaped the DNA of both Irish and Scottish populations, leaving a dominant genetic signature that still defines much of their ancestry today. Together, these prehistoric waves created what scientists call the insular Atlantic genome, a shared genetic foundation that binds Ireland and Scotland. It explains why modern DNA studies reveal such strong overlaps between the two groups. In many ways, their genetic roots are nearly identical, reflecting a common origin story written long before history was recorded. This shared foundation is the bedrock of Irish and Scottish identity. It's a reminder that at the deepest level, both peoples are connected by the same ancient family tree, even before later migrations and cultural shifts added new layers to their DNA. Celtic connections. If the shared prehistoric foundations gave Ireland and Scotland their genetic bedrock, it was the Celtic tribes who truly shaped their identities. The Celts weren't just a cultural force, they were a genetic one too, weaving together the DNA of these islands into what scientists call the insular Atlantic genome. From around 2,500 years ago, Celtic-speaking peoples spread across Europe, but in Ireland and Scotland they developed unique branches of the Celtic world. Their languages, traditions, and kinship systems carried forward alongside their genes, leaving a strong imprint that still shows up in modern DNA studies. One of the most fascinating aspects of this Celtic connection is the Gaelic migrations across the Irish Sea. Families and clans moved back and forth, especially between Ulster in Northern Ireland and Western Scotland. These movements blurred the genetic boundaries, creating overlapping lineages that make it difficult to draw sharp distinctions between Irish and Scottish ancestry. In fact, many people today who take DNA tests find that their genetic profile reflects both sides of the sea, even if their family stories only mention one. The Celts also reinforced a sense of shared identity. Clan structures, warrior traditions, and oral histories tied communities together, and those bonds were mirrored in their DNA. This is why geneticists often find striking similarities between Irish and Scottish populations, because their ancestors weren't just neighbors, they were kin. Yet the Celtic legacy wasn't uniform. Different regions absorbed Celtic culture in unique ways, and later historical events layered new influences on top. But at the heart of both nations lies this shared Celtic genome, a reminder that Ireland and Scotland are branches of the same tree, rooted in the same ancient soil. Distinct differences. While Ireland and Scotland share deep genetic foundations and strong Celtic connections, history introduced unique influences that set them apart. These differences are subtle but significant, painting a picture of two related peoples who followed slightly different paths. One of the clearest distinctions comes from the Viking invasions. Beginning in the late 8th century, Norse raiders and settlers left a stronger genetic footprint in Scotland than in Ireland. Coastal regions such as the Scottish Isles, Orkney, Shetland, and the Hebrides show higher levels of Scandinavian ancestry. In Ireland, Viking influence was more concentrated in urban centers like Dublin, but overall it was less widespread. This means Scottish DNA often carries more Norse markers than Irish DNA. Another difference lies in the Gaelic migrations. While Gaelic culture originated in Ireland, waves of migration carried it into Scotland, especially into the Highlands and western regions. This movement reinforced shared ancestry, but also created distinct regional identities. Scottish Gaelic, for example, developed its own linguistic and cultural flavor, even though it shares roots with Irish Gaelic. The Ulster Scots community adds another layer of complexity. In the 17th century, Scottish settlers moved into Ulster, blending their DNA with local Irish populations. This created a unique genetic and cultural mix that still shapes Northern Ireland today. Regional variations also matter. Highland Scots often show stronger Celtic and Norse influences, while Lowland Scots reflect more genetic mixing with English and continental Europeans. In Ireland, genetic variation is less pronounced, with a more consistent Celtic continuity across the island. Together, these differences highlight how migrations, invasions, and settlements left distinct imprints on each population. They remind us that while Irish and Scottish DNA is closely related, it isn't identical. Each carries unique markers that reflect the twists and turns of history, shaping two nations that are kin but not clones. Modern identity and DNA testing. Today, DNA testing has become a popular way for people to explore their roots, and for many, the results reveal just how intertwined Irish and Scottish ancestry really is. Companies like Ancestry DNA and 23andMe often show overlapping percentages for people with family ties to either nation, reflecting the shared genetic foundations we've already explored. But these tests also highlight the differences shaped by history. For example, someone with Scottish ancestry might see stronger traces of Norse DNA, especially if their family comes from coastal regions or the Highlands. Meanwhile, Irish ancestry often reflects a more consistent Celtic continuity with fewer external influences outside of Viking settlements in places like Dublin. What makes this fascinating is how DNA connects to identity and belonging. For many, discovering Irish or Scottish markers isn't just about science, it's about cultural pride, family stories, and a sense of place in history.
These results remind us that identity is layered, part genetics, part culture, and part personal experience. In the end, modern DNA testing reinforces what history already tells us. The Irish and Scottish are deeply connected, sharing much of their genetic heritage, yet each carries unique signatures that reflect their distinct journeys. It's a story of kinship and individuality, written in the strands of DNA that continue to shape who we are today.
The story of Irish and Scottish DNA is one of kinship and individuality. From the earliest hunter-gatherers and Neolithic farmers to the Celtic tribes and Viking settlers, both nations share a genetic foundation that binds them together. Yet history added unique twists: Scotland's stronger Norse influence, Ireland's more consistent Celtic continuity, and the migrations that blurred but never erased their distinctions. Modern DNA testing confirms what history suggests. The Irish and Scottish are deeply connected, often appearing side by side in ancestry results. But it also highlights the subtle differences that make each group unique, reminding us that identity is more than just shared roots. It's shaped by culture, geography, and the journeys of countless generations. So, whether your DNA test points to Ireland, Scotland, or a mix of both, remember this: your genes are more than science. They're a living record of migrations, battles, and family ties across centuries. In the end, the Irish and Scottish are two branches of the same ancient tree, distinct but forever intertwined. If you enjoyed this journey through history written in our DNA, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more stories that connect science with identity.